Welcome to this week's look at the New York City real estate market, specifically Manhattan and Brooklyn, as well as a segment on the luxury market, so $4 million and above. That's our luxury market here. I'm Julianne Bond, and each week I look at these statistics. I do it to empower you. I do it so that if you're thinking about buying or selling, you understand exactly what is happening in the market and you have as much information as any real estate agent has. There's a lot more that goes into being a successful buyer or seller. However, it is really, really empowering to have these numbers. And so I like to provide those because I really want people to be informed so that they can make great decisions and have a great and successful outcome. So if you're interested in this kind of data and you find that it's helpful to you, feel free to subscribe. Also, feel free to post your comments below. Ask me your questions. I'm always happy to answer questions that you have about the real estate market. Again, knowledge is power. I want you to have the knowledge so you can have the power. All right, let's get started. So we're talking about the luxury market in Manhattan from July 5th to July 11th. There were 28 contracts signed in 1 week at $4 million and above. And I'll get into kind of the average price points and what neighborhoods that happened in, whether they were co-ops or condos or townhouses. But before I do, let's just talk about the signed contract activity. So this last week, it was 28 contracts. We have been in a very long streak of 22 weeks, straight weeks, with contracts signed of 30 and more every single week in the luxury market. The last time we had any kind of streak at all, it was a 6-week streak in 2015. So this is impressive. This streak that we've had is very impressive. But honestly, even 28 contracts signed is still pretty impressive. And we had a holiday in there. So my sense is that the holiday played a role in it. It is the summer. Maybe that's having a role in this. But suffice it to say that, yes, we broke our streak of 30 contracts or more signed every week for 22 straight weeks. But at the same time, 28 is not so bad. The two top contracts, the thing that's interesting about those contracts is that they were priced over $17 million, each of them, and they were both new developments with crazy amenities in the building and beautiful, huge apartments. 5 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, terraces, gardens. So these are real trophy properties. One was at 109 East 79th Street. It is a condo building that is a new construction. It has 20 floors and only 31 units. The building will not even be ready until next year. That's a sign of confidence, don't you think? That someone is willing to put down over $17 million for something that they can't even use for another year. The other contract was on the west side. It was over in Waterline Square. For those of you that don't know, it is a development that's going on around, I think it's a 5-acre parcel of land on Riverside. It is being developed to have amazing amenities. Honestly, anything you can think of. I'll put a link in there you can check out. Actually, I'll put a link in for both of these buildings so that you can see what the amenity package looks like, what the finishes look like, who the architects are, what they're promising, and what those neighborhoods look like. The one that was over at Waterline Square was Penthouse B at 30 Riverside Boulevard. It was also quite a large apartment, had a huge terrace, almost 1,100 square feet, exposures north, south, east of the city, the river, everything that lets you know that you're in Manhattan and you can see the world from this apartment. Also quite large, has 4 bedrooms and 5.5 baths. So those were the top 2 contracts, but let's take a deeper dive. So of these 28 contracts, how many of these were co-ops? How many were condos? And how many were townhouses? And what neighborhoods were these contracts being signed in. So the first is, let's look at co-ops. There were actually 2 co-ops contracts signed. One was on the east side, one was in Midtown. And the average price for those 2 were about $5.7 million. The contract activity for townhouses was also 2 contracts. One was on the west side, one was downtown. And the average price on those 2 townhouses was about $14.7 million. The lion's share of contracts that were signed were condos. There were 24 condo contracts signed. 4 on the east side, 4 on the west side, 2 in Midtown, and 14 downtown. And the average price on those was $8.6 million. So what it's saying is that mostly people want to buy condos. Why? Because in many cases they are brand new. So they're getting a brand new apartment, brand new finishes, brand new amenities. Many of them are downtown. There's a lot of condo development going on downtown, and so that probably explains a fair amount of this. Also, condos are really good because you're owning real property, and if you want to buy as an investment, you can do that and rent it out. So if you want to monetize it when you're done, or you want to just use it once in a while, when you feel like being in New York City, you can do that also. Final thing I want to leave you with the luxury market are the quick stats. So let's take a look at those quick stats for the week of July 5th to July 11th. The total weekly sales volume was 248 million. And the average asking price was about 8.8 million, and the median asking price was 6.4 million. The average days on the market was quite high, 676. So again, looking at what happens with new development, how new development was a little bit more than a little bit quiet over the last year and a half. We had a lot of inventory. It is now being absorbed at a pretty quick pace, but that would account for the very long days on the market, 676. So anyway, any questions about the luxury market, I am happy to answer those questions, so feel free to post your comments. Let's talk about the Manhattan market-wide, from a supply standpoint. As of last week, there were 6,915 properties in Manhattan currently available. What's interesting about that is that number is down, so supply is down a little bit from the week before, very likely to do with summer doldrums, if you want to look at it that way. We would kind of expect to see the supply go down. So of those 6,915 properties, 5,476 of those are pending, so they're already in contract. And it is still a very strong number. We are still very strong at 5,476. So last week in Manhattan, there were 265 contracts signed. That is also down a bit, but still very strong. And again, it's about what we would expect for the summer. The statistics line up in a way that still favor the sellers. We would still say we would call this still a seller's market. Let me just add this now that I said seller's market. So here's something really important. I'm going to share a chart with you. I'm going to put this chart in here now that has to do with pricing and how important it is to get your property sold in the first 30 days. You'll see from the chart that in the first 30 days, there is no discount to the price. So the strategy here is do not overprice your property, thinking, oh, it's a hot market, I'm going to take advantage, I'm going to ask a little bit more. Because what you can see is in the first 30 days, there is no discount. When you start to get to a couple months out, you start to look at something more like a 4.6 discount. So let's call it a 5% discount. So when you think about it, is it worth it to overprice when what is most likely to happen is by being aspirational in your pricing, you're just going to lose money in the end. You're going to lose about 5% and you're going to sit on the market. And the longer you sit on the market, the less it's worth. in the eyes of the buyers. So you don't want that. Price it on or about where it's supposed to trade. Even if you price it a little bit low, the market will seek its own level. You have too many eyes on this. It's Manhattan. You have a lot of people looking to buy. If it's meant to go higher, it will. So don't worry about it. You cannot leave money on the table here. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit is what we're seeing with kind of what we're projecting for Q3, Q4. Very good chance, and I'll share that chart with you as well, that historically, if we look at this, we still have a lot more room for growth in prices. So what could happen, good chance could happen, is that in Q3 and Q4, we will actually see an increase in prices, but we may also see a reduction in deal volume. So there may be fewer deals done, but at higher prices. I think the most important thing is what we're seeing historically when we look at the data is that we definitely have room to grow, and that's a good thing. Last look, we'll take a look at the Brooklyn market. So now let's talk about what's happening in Brooklyn. There's some pretty interesting statistics from last week and some pretty interesting trends that we're seeing. So let's just look at the supply to begin with. So I'll share that chart with you. There are 3,200, almost 3,300 properties that are currently available on the market. And that is, it's really not up or down. The market in terms of supply is kind of going sideways, so we're not really getting a lot of clues about the future, but it's kind of hanging in there. And it's interesting because we are in the summer now, so right now it's kind of holding steady. Probably what is of most interest is the pending sales. So these are the listings that are in contract waiting to close, 3,650. The contracts, meaning the properties that are in contract ready to close versus the ones that are active and available, there are more that are pending than there are available. That creates definitely favor to the sellers. That is something that, particularly in Brooklyn, that we have been seeing and we are continuing to see. So what we're seeing are median prices rising, price per square foot. The thing that is interesting though, and I am going to share this chart with you as well, is if you really break it down though, and you look at co-ops and condos, forget for the moment townhouses, because that market is just crazy right now, and those are flying off the market at very, let's call them high prices. If you just thought about kind of the market in general, you might have the sense that everything in Brooklyn is just flying off the shelf. In fact, what this chart is showing is that if you look at just co-ops and condos, forget townhouses, the 2 bedrooms those are up, and the studios and 1 bedrooms are down. So it is harder for those sellers to move their studios and 1 bedrooms probably because people are home and working, and if they think they're going to have to be home and working, they want a little more space. So we're definitely seeing a kind of a decrease in the sales and in the prices of the studios and 1 bedrooms, whereas in the larger units, the 2+ bedrooms, we're seeing an increase. If you look at the townhouse sales, the townhouses are on fire in Brooklyn more so than in Manhattan. And so again, overall, if you look at the charts, you'll see how it breaks down with those smaller units actually losing value, let's say, and losing traction in terms of volume and price. But anything that's larger in a co-op or condo is moving briskly and is also, the prices are trending upward. Townhouses, again, they're kind of in their own category. So those prices are also rising. So what are we expecting to see for Brooklyn? We are expecting to continue to see rising median prices and also price per square foot. But bear in mind, it really does depend on the size of the unit. So that's it for this week's State of the Market. Again, feel free to ask me any questions that you have about the real estate market. Follow me on social media. I do a lot of posting about the market on there as well. So lots of good information. Feel free to email me. I'm always happy to communicate with you that way or even on the phone. I'll be back next week with another look at the New York City state of the real estate market. In the meantime, take care.